Alright, universe. I don't even know what to say at this point. The police siren in the background is so appropriate, considering this is the 6th attempt I've made to record something of value in the last 37 hours. Random guess on the hours, but close. And having just deleted a 42-minute recording that I thought I was trimming the disruptive phone grab at the end off the last 3 seconds. No, those are the only 3 seconds I still have. And I do love when I make errors that are just such a stupid, stupid mistake to have made. I've never used this trim key. I just assumed it would trim the part that was the smaller part and not the 42-minute part. But hey, I think things all the time that are wrong, and there's one of them. So having learned my lesson about trim, or at least this version of trim, the unfortunate predicament of knowing what I just said for the last 45 minutes but not being able to repeat a single word of it in any relative or recollected fashion. Well, back to square one, right? So, what then did you miss that now will be missed by all forever? Honestly, not much. Because I have had just a terrible week of not flowing with my environment. And considering I've been flowing with my environment for 3 or 4 years now, it stood out. And it stood out in a way that not only did I not realize it and do something to back away from all this forced energy I was creating. No. I thought, oh, yeah, this is like old me getting shit done. Well, at least expending a lot of energy, looking like I'm doing stuff, but probably not getting anything done. In fact, if anything, this week was a setback, especially for my one and only friend, Lily. Her troubles with the law enforcement agencies of the Colorado region are not mine to talk about. But you decide to forego your obligations in those regards, say oversleep a court date or something similar, you're going to find yourself in not just, oh, were you so tired you wanted to reschedule land? No. You're going to find yourself. And so because those charges were dependent on these charges, these new charges are a bunch of charges that we're just going to throw on because we don't really even like you. So how's that treat you? Next time maybe you'll set your alarm clock. Well, yeah, it was that kind of week. And while I might not have suffered anything personally in the setback category for the week, other than missing a day of work because of a 101-degree fever, which is no longer tolerable, that keeps you home, so it kept me home on Wednesday. It got me to the COVID testing facility, and hopefully I get a negative result tomorrow so I can get back to work and continue to feed my dog. That's my stress. Very little. But the rest of the world, and those in my immediate orbit, well, seems like they're processing a lot. And maybe not processing it in real time in a way that is the most effective. So, I'm here to say, I get it. I get that it's hard. And I don't think I did that very well this week. Because in some ways, I don't get that you could miss something where the outcome for said oversight is 10 times the burden. Those are the kinds of things that I always manage to find just enough personal reserve in the tank to ensure I was there. And creating burdens for ourselves that only make that which was already difficult next to impossible. That's something I got a little bit of skin in the game. I got some of real depth of knowledge to talk about. So I'll admit that watching other people make that mistake is the immediate reactionary mothering instinct in myself to be to take over and say, no, you're going to do it like this. No, you're not allowed to make that mistake. It's too big a one. Well, no, of course not. You're allowed to make whatever mistakes you have to make to learn what you need to learn. And I guess letting go of the idea that you can help people avoid the same mistakes that you had to use to learn purpose in life, well, I can't imagine a more full of myself thought than that one. And so all week I've been trying to find something of worth, internal worth, to hit the record button with in each attempt, and there are 3 poor ones, just dissolved into a lack of focus and direction that even I wasn't willing to persist. And if you've listened to any of these, you know I can go for 40 minutes without knowing what I'm talking about. So again, I feel like I'm at a pivot point where the nonsense has to stop. Everything about the universe that is incongruent is coming to an end. This is a time for harmony. This is when the energies are cooperating. There is no harmonic distortion. There is no discordance. There is no room for that which has been working outside of and against the main flow of energy in a positive and uplifting direction. I don't know what any of that shit is. I just know it's out there. I just know it's real. And I just know that we're in the process of literally lifting ourselves above and beyond it. And I know that for me, it's all my fault. Well, this journey of self-documentation is because I have been living in a state of not myself. I have been living in conditions of doing what I think my environment wants me to do, not doing what I need to do to be myself in my environment. And I have been the victim of my own self-doubt and self-loathing to the point that I didn't even recognize that these were things I was doing until about a decade ago. And I've been doing them most of my life. And the ways that I look at our universe today, our universe meaning white middle America for this guy, the things we've lost, the privacy we've lost, the freedom of speech that's under threat, direct threat, censorship invading the very town square discourse of our time, the lack of accountability in our leadership, the legalization of propaganda to our own population through our own media sources, the failure to hold any corporate entity to a standard that would qualify as one that you and I are held to, even though the rights they retain as individuals create scenarios that allow them to completely disrupt lifestyle as we've known them in America, if not across the world. They are sociopaths run amok, and I don't see anybody caring to try to stop them. And all these cycles of civilizational discontent. Well, when I was doing a hard and thorough view of where and when, I wish I had been a better person for myself and for my environment. I started noticing all the same trends. This lack of accountability, this pushing stuff down the road like it won't become a bigger problem if it's not handled in real time. This belief that my interests held sway over a larger group, my personal interests somehow had some extra value because they were mine. And the disappointment that I would deliver to anybody over time. Spend enough time with politicians in the American governmental structure, and you'll grow tired of them. Their way of doing things is uniquely distorted. And so is mine. Now, I think for different reasons. I've never wanted to get kickbacks on that oil refinery project down there on the Highway 66 or whatever other stuff you're pulling over there in government structural America. But to say that I was not willing to run schemes myself, of course I was. I mean, I was lost in every internal and external direction you could have been lost. Had no faith in anything. Had lost all regard for my own personal worth, as well as, frankly, that which is the human race. I had come to believe that this was just a chance occurrence in the middle of nowhere universe, Milky Way, Capricorn, whatever galaxy that we're in, and was as nihilistic and, frankly, as unwilling to think outside myself as I think you can get. It was all about me. My story was one of failure. Therefore, the whole world is fucked. And fuck the whole world. Yeah, I mean, talk about having no sense of seeing yourself as the problem. Well, for 35 years I came up with reasons I wasn't the problem. And, you know, whether it was something that I could explain away as, oh, this is just a phase I was going through, or, oh, I just had a particularly staticky relationship with that one woman, and it just infiltrated my entire life. And, oh, yeah, then, that year I gave up golf, so, you know, shit went fucking sour. And, oh, yeah, I didn't have a dog that year, so fuck 'em. And when I finally got so sick of the world that I didn't even want to see what came next, well, I guess I at some point or another, and not consciously, though subconsciously for sure, but not consciously, started living as if maybe changing me would change my life. And having caught on to that a little bit later on, that's in fact what was happening and was in fact occurring, changes for the better, no less. Well, I had to reverse engineer where that even came from. Still to this day don't know. But in doing those types of research projects, discovered the Mandela effect, of which I, for the first time in my life, have to admit I have no answers. I suffer the majority of them, if not 95% of them, and I don't know why. It was groundbreaking that once again, but for once in a way that I knew I had to allow myself to admit that our structural knowledge base, as we have been taught and presented it through university structure, is extremely limited, if not a flat-out diorama for us to play in a sandbox of safety and non-discovery. That's a little too conspiratorial to commit to, but the idea that I started seeing how rigid and non the ways that I would disregard aberrant information from that which fit into my schema was with the sneer of a well, you probably think the world is flat dismissal, regardless of whether we were talking about characteristics of the Leave It to Beaver children, or we were talking about politics and influence in 21st century world affairs. I was sure I was right, and sure if you weren't in agreement, you were wrong. And if I didn't know, well then teach me. Let's find out. But if I knew, then I knew. And, well, what do you know? What I knew was I was wrong. I was wrong about so many things. I had led my life, prescribed, by the way. I'm not saying I just went out and created my own set of rules and regulations and started living that way. No, I was model citizen. The only thing unusual, in my estimation, in my upbringing, is I was brought up atheist. Never went to church once. Well, I did go to church once. And, I went to church like 3 times. But, I mean, just no God. No God, no religion. All that's malarkey. Go learn other better stuff. And so have no sense of what the church brings in terms of communal belonging. In fact, the alienation that results from having nothing to fill that space alternatively, other than Boy Scouts or whatever, traditional roles that do not substitute. Well, I'm not sure that I wouldn't have rejected the entire concept without the nudge to say it was nonsense, because I thought it was nonsense. I still am not sure it's not, especially the religious dogma of Earth 8675309. But I know that at least when I heard Obi-Wan Kenobi describe the Force in Star Wars at the age of 8, I thought, well, yeah, I mean, that. We all know that. And yet, that little bit of interconnectedness, that sort of idea that all life is somehow source material from that source, which is the origin of time, space, and everything that is. Well, I still thought that was some highbrow hokum. Until my life started having to admit too much of that force of source connectivity was in play. Uh-oh, I'm going crazy again. I'm hearing voices. I think camels in my dreams are telling me wisdom secrets from ancient past. I believe that we are being lied to on an extraordinary scale by the world governments who are keeping from us both the true knowledge they have of the historical civilization ascendancy and decline on this planet, as well as the breadth of life that this planet has drawn interest from other communities, where they come from, different realities, space-time, galaxies of ours, who knows? But we're not alone. We're not even close. In fact, we're so not alone that the the biggest atheist, the most committed analytical thinker you could create, the molding that you put over me to tell me this is how it is, everything else is bullshit. Well, that was me. That's who I was. I was not myself. I was that what you asked me to do. So, if this guy can't make it 50 years through life without coming to the oh shit, the Hakuna Matata realization that I'm in fact fucking wrong about most of it. Well, I'm not looking for any kind of attention when I say it's all my fault. Like that phrases want to draw. And I'm not saying I'm above that. Like that's a move I could see myself pulling. But that isn't the move here. It's all my fault because the ways in which I'm disappointed that I didn't have more personal self belief, the character to stand against a flow I felt was disharmonic, rather than adjust my harmony to better fit that lesser existence. All those mistakes, I believe, are the root of where we are now. We're in a position where those who were looking too steadfastly at one thing might have overlooked something else. And in having realized that situational oversight was in play, bullshit their way through it. And then that bullshit became fucking legislation or something. And then all of a sudden we got bullshit in the system that we didn't want. But we're not going to weed that out of there without admitting that John Quincy Adams was frankly wrong, or whatever. We don't want to tarnish the image of blankety blank, so let's live with fallacies 1, 2, 4, and 7. And when 3, 5, 6, and 17 million more crop up, well, we'll just band-aid over those two. It's how I did life, right? I just thought, why fundamentally reset and give yourself the sort of foundational strength that could propel a next chapter of realization that matters, when you can just continually masking tape and scotch tape, cassette tape, whatever other tape you can apply to these persistent nagging issues from mistakes made long ago that never have ever been dealt with. Well, that's kind of what the world looks like to me. A place where nobody really tried to fuck things up. People's intentions were always for the good, but as more and more of us got pulled in directions that we couldn't give our best to the things that needed it the most, well, incrementally, little bit by bit, one poorly written piece of legislation at a time, one ill-conceived idea leveraged too broadly by too many, and then, for whatever reason, its width and penetration create that which nobody wanted but is now here to stay. Well, those kinds of cliche statements like, well, this is the new normal. Bullshit. This is not the new normal. This is the last of the old, broken, uncooperative, needlessly reductive, and isolating of everybody eventually system that we've got. No, I don't believe for a second that this is the new normal, that I need to walk around masked up and unsure of the threat level you present as a masked up marauder coming at me. Nope. This isn't humanity. This is us having dwindled to our basest instinct of fear and insecurity that somehow something that doesn't even matter to us is going to be taken away by somebody with the authority to say, there's nothing we can do about it. This is the way it is. Yeah, well, I can tell you that when I came to the realization that that was basically the framework that I was comfortable accepting, well, I knew I couldn't sit out anymore. I knew I had been so twisted mentally and in my assessment of everything, including myself and the environment in which I sit. I'd gotten most of it bass-ackwards wrong. And I'd done most of that by listening to everybody around me and trying to do that which it seemed like civilization is trying to get us to do. So, I know the rest of y'all just had that internal voice ringing true your whole life and followed it without hesitation across all levels of success and achievement. I see you out there driving your pink Cadillacs. But even you pink Cadillac drivers, I think if you look at what you know to be true in your heart, head, and soul versus what on a day-to-day basis you compromise, maybe just a little bit, but you know it's a compromise. The workplace forces this level of assertiveness that you're not comfortable with, or perhaps the family unit is always looking at you as the solution provider, and frankly, you're done coming up with all the answers. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it is that you feel you've been torn away from who you really are. But for me, it felt like pretty much the whole world had done it, and I had allowed it. And I had allowed it in such a way that I had come to the realization that the only real problem in the constant formula of disappointment that I saw across multiple initiatives was me. I must be it. Must be my fault. Must be my my poor assessment of my own frailty that never was strong enough to realize I didn't deserve it, I wasn't worth it, and frankly, I'm lucky to have what I have now, and if I act like this anymore, that won't even be there. Okay, I'll mask up, but I'm telling you, this isn't the new normal. The increased surveillance, the threat of terrorism, the unending fear that somebody that you've never met, that doesn't know you, and that has never, ever thought once about you, hates you enough to end your existence. Are there some of those people in the universe? I'm sure. But there aren't enough that I'm going to live my life worried that somewhere next door, somewhere across the street, somewhere in my vicinity, somewhere even on this planet is someone with that kind of intent. Instead, I'm going to start building a world where people with that kind of intent won't know what to do with themselves because they're too busy enjoying life. Now, doesn't that sound like the kind of world that if we were willing to work toward would be the kind of world we could all agree is an improvement? No more masks. No more corralling us into groups of similars. No. I am here because I'm unique. You are here because you're unique. I am not here to be corralled into some statistical grouping of likely trending activities and behaviors according to who I hang out with, who I speak to on Facebook, or who I text message after midnight. No. All of those decisions are mine to make, and they are exclusively mine to process. So, this universe of sameness, of all of us growing toward one thought pattern of similarity, well, that one's not my fault, because never have I thought anything other than the individual voice and its opportunity to bring clarity and insight to the group. Well, if there was ever one thing I thought we were all good at, it was sharing a moment of true life fulfillment with others so that maybe they too could join in on the game. I just thought that's what we did. I did not know that what you do when you realize you're in that moment is do everything you can to copyright it, trademark it, put a goddamn legal team around it, and protect it from anyone else pretending for any second that they had anything to do with the generation of said concept. Yeah, like I said, that one's not my fault. I'll take blame for a lot of this stuff. But when it came to free expression, when it comes to the power of the individual to believe in themselves and thus bring something great for society to appreciate, well, on that hand, I am willing to go all in. I mean, all in, all in. Well, does my dog have to go? Why am I ending this like this? I mean, I think of this as the most serious giveaway that just happened with nobody noticing. We gave away our individual thinking processes to be told this is how we now think. And most of us said, good, finally. You know, I've been trying to figure out what I think about that stuff for a while, and if someone would have just told me a while ago what I think about it, I'd have been a whole lot, well, I would have, yeah. Thanks for telling me what I think, as always. Yeah, I got nothing here. As a matter of fact, since I have nothing here, I'll just end it with, I got nothing. Okay, for the first time ever, I think I officially am conceding to have failed my own ending strategy. So, not wanting to diminish the value of the individual and their autonomy to own and think their thoughts in the way that they own and think their thoughts as whoever they are, and watching groupthink and slogan sayings take over conversational retort. It's something I've seen in my lifetime change dramatically for the worse. And I used to not give a shit one way or the other because, again, anarchy, random collision of particles, and matter gives rise to mind, then none of this can possibly have meaning in a greater context. But when mind gives rise to matter, yeah, I guess maybe those individual thoughts of mine are potentially the most precious thing in the universe. So the idea of giving them away to the Facebook news feeds headline run? Okay. That is one mistake. One activity of which I can honestly say I never participated. But just because I've never been on Facebook doesn't make me better than anybody else. In fact, it just makes me less connected and less informed as to what all the glorious things all the rest of you are doing really are. I thus bid you go out and be glorious and make sure it makes it onto your Facebook page, even when it's not as glorious as maybe you thought.